Hey there fellow art lovers and fans of all things painted, welcome back. Today we're going to be painting a Hobgoblin Blood Hunter. So let's begin. This one took quite a bit of extensive preparation. My Blood Hunter was going to be a member of the Order of the Mutant, and makes alchemical mutagens to alter his physical form. And I knew the kind of pose I wanted, but doubted pose maniacs would have it to hand. So I cobbled together a series of other poses to create this monstrosity, which I proceeded to sketch out before going in and drawing in the finer details. The extra arms, being mutated, were going to be a lot more bumpy than his natural arms, bulging and off colour. I decided to give him studded leather armour as this was a type I'd yet to depict in this series. Then it was time to start blocking in the colour, using the lasso tool to section off different parts and using the fill tool to colour them. For the irises, I ended up masking them to the sclera to avoid them bulging out of the sockets. Then it was back to blocking in the colours on the mouth and on the armour. I haven't gone with it this time, but perhaps for one of my future pieces I could give my character dyed armour for something more interesting than the usual shades of brown. For the test tube and flask, I left their layers on a lower opacity to simulate the glass that made them up, and so I could put the contents of each in behind. The last things to colour were the studs. This was a little time consuming purely because of how many there were, but nothing like as time consuming as painting in scales like in my recent Lizard Man piece. Then it was time to start shading and highlighting each part, using masks to restrict where the shadows and highlights on each layer could go. For the mutated arms I used references of blisters, off screen for the sake of you guys, to shade in the various lumps and bumps. I wanted them to look real icky. Don't look them up unless you want to be grossed out. Violent and hot-tempered, our guy has definitely seen his fair share of battle, so I gave him a few scars to reflect that. Looking back, he probably should have had a few more on his arms, but maybe next time. I gave him shocking pink eyes to reflect his magical lifestyle as a blood hunter. Hobgoblins have sharp teeth, and our guy is no exception. Though his teeth are a little more well kept than you might expect, if only he'd set as much stock by protecting the innocent as he does for his dental hygiene. For the fur parts of the armour, I used the smudge tool to pull them about and make them appear more fluffy. I stuck to muted brown shades and followed much the same process for the other leather portions of his armour. His armour is custom made with shoulder armour for his 2 extra arms, though these sections are a lot more tattered to reflect the bestial strength contained in these arms. The lower section of the armour took the form of a kilt over a pair of breeches. Each portion of the kilt was studded like the rest of the armour and followed the same basic painting process. I gave his bracers some horned adornments, likely harvested from some beast native to his homeland. I wanted to give him a wild, untamed look, and I felt the horns helped with this. I kept the breeches a much darker colour than the surrounding armour, so that the 2 different layers wouldn't fight with each other colour-wise, and the cuirass wouldn't fade into them. Plus, it varied up the colour scheme just a little. Later on, I added in some purples and greens to act as discoloured tissue for the mutated arms and where the mutagen had spread slightly outside of the intended area. About halfway through, I decided to make him blind in one eye to make the scar over his eye make a bit more sense, so I removed the pupil and coloured the iris a light grey. I felt our guy would look well with a fire motif to go with his chaotic evil nature. So I used the gradient tool made up of reds, oranges and yellows to create the base colour of the background and added in a shadow underneath our guy on a separate layer. I then painted in some flames in the foreground, starting with yellowish orange before graduating into reds and bright yellow. I added in some fire motes using a custom brush which I made by following a tutorial which I will link below. I highly recommend checking it out and giving it a like as it was very useful, and the one who made it definitely deserves more views. Next up, I made a copy of all the layers that made up my Hobgoblin, merged them, and painted them black, before using the transform tool to pull this silhouette down to the right of my character, before lowering the opacity to create a drop shadow. It was here I realised I forgot to shade the liquids of the potions in the flasks, so went in quickly to do that, and I also did a few quick background tweaks as well. Lastly, I realised I'd left the studs unshaded, so went back in, selecting each one and adding in the shading and highlights. And with that, I was done. Let's have a look at the final piece. And if you enjoyed what you just watched, please be sure to leave the video a like and subscribe and ring the bell to see more content. And if you want to get straight into some more art, you can go and watch this video for my latest content, or this one for something random.